So, section 3 of this unit focuses on now using slope-intercept form and still graphing, but only now we're going to rewrite the function into slope-intercept form. So a couple things to remind ourselves about. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So m is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. M is the slope, b is the y-intercept. So up until now, you've been given all of your equations already set up and ready to go. However, not every function has y by itself. So for example, that function doesn't have y by itself. That function doesn't have y by itself. And that function does not have y by itself. So we need to get y by itself. We need to rewrite them into slope-intercept form before we graph. So rewrite them before we graph. Rewrite before we graph. So let's go ahead and look at what we'll be doing. So I highlighted it, so it probably should be in your notes. Rewriting equations into slope-intercept form. That simply means you are getting y by itself. You are getting the variable by itself. So what are some of the things that we could do to get the variable by itself? So let's just remember that the goal is for your answer to look like y equals mx plus b. So there are certain things that you could do in order to get that done. You might have to add or subtract. You might have to add or subtract your x term. You might have to do some division. You might have to do some distributing. Or combining like terms. What are you going to do? It depends on the problem. So we're going to do some examples. So it requires you to look at the problem, see what's happening, and then do that work. So before we get into examples 1, 2, and 3, does anyone have any questions before we get started? Yeah, remember, don't be shy. Because of course, by saying nothing, I automatically get to assume that you know what you're doing. So let's look at example 1. Example 1, we've got y plus 3x equals 5. So y plus 3x equals 5. So we need to get y by itself. But this plus 3x is sitting there. We need to get rid of it. How do we get rid of plus 3x? We are going to subtract 3x. So subtract 3x on both sides. So 3x minus 3x is 0. That cancels out. Y equals 5 minus 3x. So let me ask you something. Does this equation look like that? No. What has to come first? The x has to come first. So we rewrite it as y equals negative 3x plus 5. So you rewrite it as negative 3x plus 5. So yes, you do have to rewrite it. You can't just leave it as 5 minus 3x. Go ahead, Trenton. Well, yeah, after this, we would go and graph it. After you rewrite it, then you would graph it. We'll do that part in a second. Right now, we're going to focus on rewriting. And what else? Questions on example number 1? All right, not hearing any, seeing any, so that must mean people know what they're doing. I'm hoping Willie, Sinai, and Kalade are taking their notes. Let's do example number 2. Example 2. You have negative 8x plus 6y equals negative 12. Negative 8x plus 6y equals negative 12. So we need to get 6y, we need to get y by itself. So there are 2 things that need to happen. What do we need to do first? So we've got to get rid of this negative 8. So the x has to move first. So how do we get rid of that negative 8x? So we're going to add it. Add 8x to both sides. Those cancel out. 6y equals 8x minus 12. So far, it looks like we got everything set up. Any questions before we continue? So we don't have y by itself, though. What else needs to happen? Someone other than Noah. What else needs to happen so that y is by itself? Divide everything by 6. So again, don't wait until you have to sit and do the homework assignment by yourself to then realize, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. So we have y equals 8 over 6x minus 12 over 6. Can I reduce any of that? So I can reduce the 12 over 6. So 12 over 6 reduces to what? What's 12 divided by 6? You can also reduce 8 over 6. 8 over 6, you can divide those by 2. So that's 4 over 3. 12 divided by 6 is what? 2. So minus 2. So yes, if you don't reduce, it will get marked wrong. In addition to that, when you go to graph it, you may find that you might not be able to graph it the right way because you didn't reduce. Reducing it actually makes it a little easier for you to graph. Any questions before we work example 3? Not hearing any, not seeing any. So let's go to example 3. So we'll do one more example, and then we go to graph. You should have examples 1 and 2 already. Then we have example 3. So example 3, we got y minus 3 equals 1/2 parentheses x minus 8. So I need it to look like y equals mx plus b. So I know that y equals mx plus b doesn't have parentheses in it. So what could I do with this 1/2 with those parentheses? This becomes a distributive property. So now you distribute. So you have y minus 3 equals 1/2 times x, 1/2 x, 1/2 times 8. What's half of 8? Half of 8 is 4. Any questions so far? So we still don't have y by itself. We got this minus 3 sitting there. We got that minus 3 sitting there. So we're going to add 3. Can I add 3 to 1/2? No, because those are not like terms. And I can add 3 to the negative 4. Make sure that you line them up correctly. For those of you who don't show their work, guess what? I don't care if you get the right answer. I'm still marking it wrong and giving you no credit. For all I know, you could have cheated. Show your work. So we add 3 to both sides. So that's y equals 1/2 x. Negative 4 plus 3 is what? Negative 1. So that's written and that's good to go. questions before we switch to graphing? If you missed examples 1, 2, or 3, we've got about 30 seconds now to get it caught up and cleaned up before we move on to graphing. Yeah, let's make sure we got them good ones. Because you never know when they're going to be collected. You should always be ready. If you stay ready, you never have to get ready. If you stay ready, you never have to get ready. All right. So now, just as Trenton said, Trenton mentioned earlier, once we get it rewritten, we still have to graph it if they tell us to graph it. Plus side, the graphing steps don't change. None of the graphing steps change. The only thing we did was rewrite it. So now we actually did step number 1. Now we actually did step number 1. So, for example 4. So example 4 is already written there, so you don't need to copy it if you don't need it. I know if you printed it out, you probably already have it. So example 4 is just like example 1 from the front. So we subtracted 3x from both sides. That's y equals negative 3x plus 5. Just like from the front. So step 1, rewrite. Step 2, identify the slope and the y-intercept. So the slope is negative 3. The y-intercept is 5. Plot the y-intercept on the graph. Go to the y-axis. Put your first point on the 5. You say what? Absolutely. So since our slope is negative 3 over 1, our slope is negative. That means we move down 3 and to the right 1. Down 3, right 1. Down 3, right 1. Down 3, right 1. Or you can go in the other direction. Go up 3 and to the left 1. 2, 3, up, left 1. Then draw your line. That's it. Problem's over. Again, this graph was already on your notes, so those of you who printed it out, I just recapped what we did. Those of you who couldn't or are not able to print it out, that's why we went through it, just so that you knew what to be on. The B is the y-intercept. The B is the y-intercept. So, anyone else get any questions before we continue? let's do example 5. Example 5 and then example 6. So example 5, we've got 4x minus 5y equals negative 15. So we got to rewrite it, and then we graph it. So let's look at the rewrite. So Noah, you've done a lot of the heavy lifting so far. I want you to sit this problem out. How do we solve this problem? We got to get y by itself. So not add it, because this minus sign belongs to the 5. Okay, it's all good. So we subtract 4x from both sides. So I like that Amy said what she said. So remember, this minus sign belongs to the 5, which means this 4x is positive. So to get rid of it, you would subtract 4x. Four x's drop out. You have negative 5y equals negative 4x minus 15. Now what do we do? Divide by negative 5. There you go. So, easiest way to know if you're going to divide, if there's a number sitting in front of the y variable, that means you're going to end up dividing. If there's a number sitting in front of y, at some point you're going to have to divide. If there's a number attached to the y. So the negative 5's drop out. What's a negative divided by a negative? Positive. So that's positive 4 over 5. You don't have to put the plus there. 4 over 5x. Negative divided by a negative is positive. What's 15 divided by 5? 3. So let me clean this up a little bit. Y equals 4 over 5x plus 3. Anybody stuck or have questions before we move on and start graphing? Let's do this. What's the slope? So the slope is 4 over 5. So your y-intercept is 3. Which of these two numbers goes on the graph first? Y-intercept goes on the graph first. So take the 3, go to the y-axis, put your point on 3. So your slope is positive 4 over 5. So that means you're going to go up 4 and to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or go down 4 to the left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then draw your line. That's it. Time to go. You can do that. You can easily get the 8 points as this problem is working. Any questions before we do example 6? All right, then let's finish this off. Example 6. We've got y plus 2 equals -3, parentheses, x minus 1. First thing, what do we have to do with this -3? Distribute. So we're going to distribute first. That's y plus 2 equals -3 times x is -3x. -3 times -1 is +3. So we distribute. We still got to get that y by itself, though. So something's got to happen with that, too. There you go. Subtract 2. Subtract 2 on the left. Subtract 2 on the right. So that's y equals -3x plus 1. Any questions before we continue? Not seeing none, not hearing none. So let's keep going. What's the slope? So our slope always has the x attached to it. And we always take the sign that's sitting in front of it. So that's -3, which we're going to write as a fraction. And the 1 is our y-intercept. That's right. We always make the slope a fraction. That way it's easier for us to graph it. So go to the y-axis, put a dot on 1. Since your slope is negative, go down 3, to the right 1, down 3, to the right 1. Keep going until you run out of space. Turn around and go in the other direction. Up 3, to the left 1. You draw that line. Any questions on example 6? So if you know how to rewrite, then graphing it, same as you've been graphing it. All right, couple housekeeping things. Let me go ahead and turn this recorder off. We do have a